What are we singing?
Yeah. Welcome back to Betoota Talks. My name is Clancy Overall. I'm joined by Editor-at-Large Errol Parker, doing a little bit of a junket down in Canberra. Apologise again for the teal shirt, but as I said before, it is the official Betoota Race Club merch.
Yeah.
It was been around a lot longer than the climate change-backed community, independent, local teals, whatever. Today is, it's a big honour for the Betoota Advocate to be speaking to today's guest, Jim Chalmers MP, Federal Treasurer, just the day after you've delivered your fourth federal budget. Thank you for having us.
It's an honour, fellas. It's really good to see you and get the chance to have a chat.
Now, we'll talk about the budget in a little bit, but first things first. I understand you're a basketball guy. I saw on your desk over there you've got the Logan Thunder cap, which is extremely niche.
Yeah.
From the glory days of the NBL, back when we were talking to Josh Burns about it before, obviously Australia got very interested in basketball off the back of Space Jam, the movie. Who do you think it was in the heyday? Was it Leroy Loggins? Was it Andre Young?
I was a Leroy guy because I'm from Brisbane.
Yeah, it's got to be a Bullet, right?
Yeah, I used to go and watch Leroy play a fair bit. But also there was a team there I think had Shane Heal.
Yeah.
Probably had the big guys, maybe the end of Sengstock, maybe. But we had a great team for a while, and we used to go along and watch it.
Who did the Minister for Immigration, Tony Gay? Andrew Gaze play for?
That's right. We take the piss out of him for that all the time. That, he looks exactly like Andrew Gaze.
Exactly like him.
Yeah.
It's a different bloke.
Okay, well, we're not going to let you off too easy. You answered those sporting questions pretty competently. Payne Haas, what do we think? Is this the year for the Broncos? He is looking electric. As Willie Mason said, I heard Willie Mason say the other day, this is what you're meant to do with someone like Payne Haas. Put him on to empty the tank, then bring him off.
Yeah. I saw that clip, actually. I saw that online.
Yeah.
Because I think he ran for about 200 metres the other night, and he's amazing. I've got to know him a little bit, actually, because there's some dramas with his dad that you would have seen, and so we've been helping him out a little bit with that and talking with the club. He seems like a great guy, but the thing that's magic about Payne Haas is he's got a motor like a back, but he's just this Hulk, and he at his best, he's topped kind of 2 or 3 players in the comp.
Lomu-esque. Just that size.
Just running over people.
Yeah.
Just speed bumps.
Now, you're a Logan boy. Are you 40 yet?
Am I 40 yet? I turned 47 this month.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Well, I was just about to ask you, who was your vintage of
rugby league?
Of rugby league players coming out of Logan? There would have been a few.
I'm a bit older than him, but really the huge deal in my community is Cameron Smith.
Yeah, for sure.
So Logan Brothers, one of the best rugby league clubs in the world. They had Cameron Smith, but also Corey Parker.
Yeah.
And so those two are really probably the big kind of heroes in my area. Yeah. And I got to know, before she passed, sadly, got to know Cameron's mum a bit, and we used to present trophies together, including the Cameron Smith Award. Yeah. And you just see these kids light up when they win the Cam Smith Award because he's still, a huge deal.
Yeah, big deal. The pride of Logan. Now, also Papa Lee. He's
big
there.
Papa. There's heaps of Papa Lees. There's a good story about Josh. One year, a few years ago, I run into a few guys from the club and they say, Papa was here running sprints. And I thought that's a really good sign. He's going to have a huge year. But it turns out he was running sprints because he'd ordered, I think, a suit to wear to a wedding. And he had to get into the suit that he'd ordered.
Shrink,
And so all the local kids were running sprints with Papa at Logan Brothers, but it wasn't. I'm told, I don't know if it's true, but I'm told it wasn't necessarily getting in shape for the season.
He had to get fit. He had one suit. He had to get fit for it. Now, Errol was going to ask some questions about the federal budget and how it benefits us.
Yeah. Is this how it works? He gets to ask about footy and you ask about the budget?
No, he's been brainstorming. He's actually filthy at you. I'll let him talk.
I'm just wondering what's in it for people like me.
People like you?
For people like me.
Well, you get a tax cut?
Sure.
You get it a bit easier.
I wanted a much larger one.
You did. Yep. Yeah, and you're not alone. I get that. Yep. I understand that.
I also need you to look after inflation as well. And I saw this. I need you to stimulate the economy and I need you to make sure that things continue to move in the right direction. We will need a surplus.
And he also has a heart, so he doesn't want people to lose their jobs.
Yes, I get it. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, we need to get unemployment down to zero. Every man,
we're
woman,
trying
and
to tick
child.
as many of those boxes as we can.
Okay.
But, the serious point is that it's not unusual for people to want all those things at once. And what you try and do when you're the treasurer is you try and balance all of that out and try and do the best you can by people and do as much of that as you can. Obviously, not all of that is possible at once.
Yeah.
And so trying to be upfront with people about what you can and can't do, I think, is pretty important.
Mm-hmm. How much of, if we go back to the days of uncertainty during the unprecedented pandemic that we had a couple of years ago and the free money party that we got from that, how much of what happened then is triggering inflation domestically here now? Yeah.
It was a big part of it for a while. So we did this, we got all these experts to do a review of what happened during COVID. And what they said was a lot of the spending meant that we had higher inflation than we would have otherwise had, and higher, that interest rates should have gone up earlier, so under their time in office. And so I think that's amongst the kind of objective observers, I think it's pretty well understood that they were throwing a lot of cash around when inflation was going up really quickly. And that's been part of the problem.
What is the criticism of your I guess, brand of economics as treasurer? They say they always, the opposition will say, we're the better ones. What do you think they criticise you for?
Oh, well, if you read some of the kind of traditional media, the conservative press, they will say that they want us to spend less. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty common critique, but it ignores the fact that we've actually got the budget in much better nick than it was when we came to office. And so that's a pretty standard critique. And obviously, and coming back there all before, obviously people always want you to do more to help them. And we try and do as much as we can, but we've got to be responsible about it. We've got to be able to pay for it. And so some combination of those two critiques usually.
You kind of, there's money that you can get from anywhere, right? I mean, people are going to criticize you now for not taxing corporates enough. I feel like I heard some conservatives criticizing you for not taxing, working people enough. But these little illegally imported cigarettes I have here.
Yeah. I wonder what you're fishing out of your pocket, then.
Look, I'm not going to light it here, actually. That's pretty naughty. But these are 2006 prices, mate.
Okay.
And they are
so you
easy to get.
You go into the tobacconist and you ask for the other drawer?
No, not often. You just kind of talk really quiet and it just kind of happens. Right?
Is that right? Yeah.
And it's everywhere. It's like, there's a lot of tobacconists on the main street now.
Yeah.
Look, I'm going to say, because someone who has a packet of these in my pocket is obviously part of the problem, but it was kind of something that emerged during the pandemic. Every single cop was put elsewhere. Resources were redirected, rightly so. People were guarding, quarantine hotels and that kind of stuff. And then all of a sudden, cigarettes, we're not thinking about that right now,
Okay. And
then all of a sudden it's kind of popped up. But I didn't realize until last night how much money Australia's missing out on because of this black market.
Yeah.
$6 billion a year, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
What's your approach to that?
Well, it is a big problem. Sometimes in politics, people will ask you something and your inclination is to try and explain something or make it kind of diminish it or dismiss it. But in this case, we do have a problem. We are collecting way less tobacco excise than we want to. And there's two reasons for why tobacco excise comes down. One of them's a good reason. One of them's a bad reason. The good reason is more people giving it away. And the bad reason is more people avoiding it. And so there is a proper problem here. And so in the budget, I think it's about $170 million more in enforcement and compliance. And some people say, well, why don't you dramatically decrease the tax on cigarettes and make it, less attractive as a market for the bikies and the like. But we don't think cutting taxes on cigarettes being paid for elsewhere is the way to go about it. We think we're going to boost resources for compliance and enforcement and hope that we can get more of it.
I want to ask you what, in your opinion, makes a good treasurer, because you've got on the other side of the floor, you've got, well-built, old money, son of a farmer, King's School, Sydney Uni. Oxford, I was getting there. He's a Rhodes Scholar. He was
building up to it.
He has a Master of Applied Finance. He's worked 10 years at McKinsey. He was a partner. He did the Fonterra shit. He did all that stuff.
Yeah.
They love him in Martin Place, mate.
On paper, yeah, they love him in Panama too. But, look, on paper, he should be a fantastic treasurer.
Yeah, it's hard to explain why he's so shit.
But then, look, you've got I'm sure there's people on the other side of the chamber being like, here's a man who went to a glorified TAFE college and has a doctorate of Paul Keating studies. What qualifies him to be a treasurer?
Yeah.
So what makes a good treasurer, in your opinion?
Well, first of all, I did a big apprenticeship here. I did it literally in this office. I worked for a treasurer, and there'll be people who say, they try and run down people who've had experience in politics before they get elected, but there hasn't been a day in this job where I haven't found that valuable, that time that I spent working for Swanee, because it means that you can get into it quickly. The regulators and all the, the officials, what's possible and all the rest of it. So some kind of experience, but probably not always the same kind of experience that everyone assumes. I think, I look at Angus's CV, and I made a joke. I took a shot at him before, but, I understand that, there's elements of his CV, going to Oxford and the like, that's pretty good. But I think what really matters is you got the right experience, you got a good heart for it, and you're prepared to work really hard. And the last bit's front of mind because, having done the budget last night, people don't understand how much work goes in behind the scenes. Like you sleep kind of 4 or 5 hours a night for weeks.
It's a big document.
The thing together. Yeah, and it's got, all the colleagues, they're working around the clock. And so having a good work ethic, having a good heart, being able to string it all together into a coherent story about where we are and where we're headed, I think those are the good things. And so, one of the reasons I got involved in politics was because, I wasn't from a political family, but I discovered this guy called Paul Keating, and I just couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it that there was this guy who had, big Labor heart, lots of courage, great turn of phrase. And I just thought that, if that's what he does for a living, then I'm going to try and work out how to do that for a living.
It's interesting you say that about the Swanee kind of apprenticeship.
Swanomics during
Swanomics. Tell us a little bit. Is it true that, like, I've heard that he is like one of the most degenerate Springsteen fans of all time?
He is.
Tragic.
Yeah, he really is. And he used to be literally in this office, and he'd have when he had a stereo with a CD player in it, and a lot of mornings you'd come in and it would just be absolutely cranking. Like you'd know if you'd beaten him in or not by whether you could hear Born to Run from 80 metres away in the building. And he genuinely still does. He just absolutely loves it.
Well, we heard that before Paul Keating delivered his final budget as treasurer, he listened to Wagner
That's right.
quite loudly. What did you listen to last night before you walked out into the big house?
I don't know that I listened to anything just before then, but one of the things I've noticed, obviously I talked to Paul about the differences in our musical tastes. I grew up in Logan City, and for me that kind of 90s hip-hop scene was everything.
4 Triple Z type stuff.
Yeah, a lot of that. Yeah, Black Beat and all of that was fantastic. So our musical tastes are very different. Me, Paul and Wayne, all very, very different. But what I've found as I get a little bit older is my musical tastes kind of mellow a bit. And so I just like beats.
A little less hardcore gangster rap.
I just like, you've got so many options now with playlists and stuff. If you just search for, you find someone you like and you hit the radio option of that. And I find over time, partly because I can't play horrendous language in my car with 3 little kids, but I just find over time that my musical tastes have mellowed, not all the way to Wagner. No. I've got a long way to travel before I get there, but a bit more mellow than they might have been once.
So just snapping back very violently to the budget. Let's talk about previous budgets in previous governments. What could have previous treasurers done to make your job easier with this budget? What are some things that stick out that you've really got to put the spack filler over?
Well, the big things when we came to office, there was, inflation was galloping, just going nuts. And it's taken us a while to kind of arrest that and bring it down. We got some new inflation numbers today, which were really good. And so that in terms of the inheritance, that was the big thing. But a fair bit of waste in the budget we've had to kind of wind back. And including in COVID, you mentioned COVID before. We were very supportive of the government during COVID because we knew that governments had to step in and help people. And, if you think about that JobKeeper payment, we were saying sort of with increasing kind of alarm towards the end of the Morrison government that if you want to help people who really need it, you got to stop spraying it around to people who don't need it.
We called it socialism.
That's good. That's good. I wish I'd thought of that at the time. So there was a bit of waste there. So those sorts of things we've had to
Jerry Harvey stuff and all that kind of.
Yeah. I think from memory, maybe I've got this number not perfectly right, but I think from memory there's about $20 billion that went to companies that were really profitable.
Yep.
And so we said there's some missing out, tourism and the like. If you weren't giving it to people who don't need it, you could give a bit more to people who do.
I want to talk about your opposition now. And look, I've seen you taking baseball bats out recently. In all honesty, and I'm not trying to look like I'm giving you softballs here, but it looks to me that there might be a deficit of talent in the Liberal Party. The cavalry, like who have they got? Who have they got coming forward? If Peter Dutton gets, abducted by the Chinese off Portsea tomorrow, it's going to be Angus Taylor, I'm assuming. But
I don't know. I don't know if that's the case. Yeah, the funny thing about that is we were just talking about that in question time, literally, 2 hours ago. Richard Miles and I were talking about that.
Yeah.
They're thinner than usual. Let's just put it as kindly as we can.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know that if it wasn't Peter Dutton, I don't know that it would be Angus Taylor. They've got a few okay people kind of coming up 2 or 3 rungs below those guys.
Do you think they need to spend a bit more time in the wilderness, like Labor did, rebuilding?
Yeah. Well, they obviously need a bit more time in the wilderness. And I think I took a shot at Angus before, which I feel a bit bad about. So now I'm trying to recover from that.
No, we want more of it.
Make up for it.
We want more of it.
But the point you're making, I think, is a point which is frequently made by the other journalists in this place, which is it's unusual for a major political party to have no options.
Yeah. Like who honestly, who is it? If it's not Angus?
Oh, I think
Dutton might lose his seat, for example. Marginal seat in North Brisbane.
Yeah.
He took off during the cyclone. There's bad blood there.
Well, they've had that very, unsportsmanlike thing happen up in Dixon where they've put in a teal to siphon off.
Yeah. I mean, whatever, there's a green up there too. Labor's been 1.7 off.
Yeah.
If he loses his seat this election, who is the leader?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a guy called Dan Tehan who would fancy himself, but he's under pressure in his seat. Angus would fancy himself.
He might lose his seat to a stand-up comedian, yeah.
Susan Lee might fancy herself as an option, but I don't know that any of those options are especially compelling.
Now, we've heard that Taylor, and this is proper gossip now, we've heard that Taylor and Dutton are feuding. What's going on? What do you mean? You work with them technically. What's going on?
It wouldn't shock me because that job, that shadow treasurer's job, is a really important one if you're trying to win an election.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's true, but it wouldn't shock me because Dutton doesn't get a lot of help from him.
All right.
And Dutton needs a bit of help.
Yeah.
And so if there's frustration there, then that would probably be the least surprising thing.
So you said last night on ABC 7:30, the first interview you did after delivering the budget, we're the second, by the way, you said that he was incompetent. Is there anything else you'd like to say about Angus Taylor?
Well, I know that to the outside world, because we have to try and tally each other up in question time, I don't really, there's not anyone I kind of badly dislike, but I find, and it comes back a bit to the question about Angus's CV, just this assumption against all the available evidence that he is some kind of credible figure. There are good people on that side of the parliament. There are people, nice people, and there are talented people. But there's just something about Angus Taylor which does not compute. That's kind of surprising that he's found his way into what is a relatively senior position.
Would you say he fell upwards?
Yeah, I think. Well, that's probably is a pretty good. You know, we all know people who get promoted kind of beyond their station, and it feels like he's one of those people.
I just want to touch quickly on the other side of the room's biggest target, which is Medicare. You'd know how much it would cost to add dental on to Medicare.
Yeah.
How much is that?
It depends how you do it, but it's billions.
Billions,
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
So why did people who need dental care miss out again this time?
Well, what we try and do all the time is we try and work out what's the best, most cost-effective way to make Medicare better. Mm-hmm. And this budget's been about the bulk billing incentive because, you know, bulk billing, there's a lot of downward pressure on bulk billing. People can't find a bulk billing doctor. It means they avoid the doctor. It's mean mums and dads are driving around suburbs at all hours.
The hours are between 11 and 2,
right?
Which, you know, people who need to go and see a bulk billing doctor, they've got stuff on there like work.
Yeah. And so we had to find about $8 billion just to do that bit of it.
Okay.
And then in addition to that, there's almost $1 billion for women's health. And so you've got to work out, you can't do everything at once. You've got to work out what you can afford to do. And a lot of good people say to us, you got to put dental in Medicare. I got it at the National Press Club today. I got a question about it.
Well, it's how the Greens won the heart of Brisbane was, you know.
Do you think that's why they?
Free mental, free dental.
It wasn't like, you know, like, oh, we need to save the Tarkine forests of Tasmania. No, it's like, free mental, free dental.
Yeah.
Vote for us and we will be a thorn in Jim's side.
Yeah. Well, I think that's interesting about the Greens because you know, the difference is they get to say stuff and we have to do stuff.
They get to throw peanuts.
Yeah. And one of the things I've noticed, and this is relevant to the election, is when the Greens are too obviously bashing us in a way that helps the coalition, Greens voters don't like that.
No.
You know, they don't like the idea that a lot of these characters, Max Chandler Mather's the worst at it.
Like basically stonewalling you on housing
just
for 10
plays
months.
into Peter Dutton's hands. And so in communities like Griffith and Brisbane and Ryan, you know, if we're able to say that if you vote for the Greens, you risk Peter Dutton, that gets the Greens in all kinds of strife.
Also, I feel like South Brisbane, they've done their whinging, right? They're going to vote Labor again because
they've had their Prime Minister too.
Well, they got excluded from the Olympics plan. So they're just like, oh, cool, we can go back to voting Labor now. We went radical for a little bit because we didn't want the Gabba to get developed.
Don't touch our Gabba, and now it's being turned into apartments.
Is that right?
Nice one, Cooperoo Action Group. You've really done it this time.
Yeah. We must save a school with 100 kids that could be easily
it's made of
elsewhere.
Sandstone, like half of Sydney.
Yeah.
It's cut from the Kangaroo Point cliffs.
We're talking a lot of shit. We have been, actually. We thought the Olympics would have been incredible. It sounds like it's
near and dear to your heart.
Yeah, you should have done up the Gabba. It's half the suburb is car dealerships and barbecue retailers. We could have raised it all and just...
What's going to become of the German club?
I know. Ballet.
That's a good spot, that German club. I hope you're not running that place down.
The only place in the world where you can have it's great for preloading before a test because you can have a stein of German beer and before you have to spend the day drinking mid-strength.
Right.
But yeah, it's a good part of the world. Now, I want to talk about Logan.
Yeah.
Logan's changed a lot too. You know, I always remember Woodridge. The Woodridge boys had the postcode tatted across their chest, but they had it differently. It was all for one, one for all.
Yeah. That's serious Logan cred that you know.
Yeah. But I think the area's changed a little bit.
I have that tattoo too on my chest. Yeah.
You're a Woodridge lad.
I represent Woodridge. That's where my office is. Did you know that? Yeah, Logan Central, Woodridge,
So what's it looking like? There's a lot of money in Logan now. It's like Western Sydney, you know what I mean? You've kind of got...
That's Logan Village.
Yeah, all the concrete cowboys.
There's some big blocks down there. But no, I mean, it's... So Logan was actually born the same year I was. Right. And it has changed over time, very multicultural. It's got some pockets which are kind of middle class, but it is still essentially an area where there's a lot of people on kind of low and fixed incomes. You know, Woodridge, Logan Central, Kingston, Slacks Creek, these are great areas, but they're areas where, it's got its fair share of challenges, as it always has.
A lot of Afghans moving in too. I've heard the restaurants are going off down there now.
There's some great restaurants, and the market's on. If anyone's listening and they want to check out Logan, the best way to understand Logan is to go to Woodridge Station on a Sunday morning. There's this thing called the Global Food Markets. It's unbelievable. Just breakfast noodles and just all these like pop-ups, Asian food, Afghan food, unbelievable. And so, really multicultural, wonderful, wonderful place, and becoming more and more popular because it's right on the freeway there between Brisbane and the Gold Coast, and so it's handy to everything.
So now that you've delivered the 4th edition of the fiscal War and Peace to the Parliament, what's happening now? Are you going to trade the Taro cash for King G, head back to Logan and get ready campaigning, or?
I am. Well, I sort of am. I don't know about every detail of that, but we'll be campaigning before long.
Yep.
And I'm looking forward to that.
Not exactly a marginal electorate where you are.
It has been.
Yeah.
I mean, the margin's about 9% now, but it's been 1.
Really?
It basically every seat in Queensland is kind of. It's not really. There aren't really any safe Labor seats in Queensland.
No.
Yeah.
And so,
except maybe Kennedy. Even that's
back in the day. Yeah, maybe.
Well, except of course for Marinella. I mean, it's either
with
Labour.
Safe Labor seats.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's not. I mean, I feel like Queensland's going to do something crazy this election, and it can only go in your favour, right? Because
can't go much the other way.
Yeah, can't go much the other way.
Yeah,
and it's funny because I think Queensland, look, we're well known for being main characters. We actually loved the attention during Cyclone Alfred, but we don't like the fact that we're no longer viewed as the bellwether. We don't like the fact that we don't have that power to decide because. It's looking like it's going to be Western Sydney or Western Melbourne who decide. I think Queensland are going to start. They did something crazy last election. They elected 3 Greens MPs.
I think we will do something crazy, like we'll, elect the giant up in Leichhardt.
Yeah, he's going to start. Yeah,
Matty Smith.
Yeah,
I went up there and we went to Taipan's training.
Really?
And Matty's 6'11" or something. He's got the RM Williams on. I throw him an alley-oop off the glass and he jams it. And he's like, no warm-up. RM Williams, Cairns pipe. It did wonders for
it's
not
like
for
that
his
thing
career,
of
but for mine. Yeah.
Obama when he was just hanging out and he just went.
And he goes, "That's what I do. That's how I do. That's how I do.
That's how I do."
Yeah, I've only watched that clip maybe 900 times. Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen the Obama book up here. I've seen every other. You've got Henry Lawson. You've got LeBron James. Oh,
Barry's
Obama
up there. Yeah, he's up there.
Paul Keating, obviously, 4 or 5 Paul Keating books.
A notable absence.
50 Shades of Grey, actually. What's going on?
You got a Peter Fitzsimon's book up there?
Yeah.
I think I do, yeah.
Burke and Wills, according to me. We've also got, I want to talk about your influences now, just as we wrap up. Who else would you point to other than Paul Keating, Swanee, Obama, Henry Lawson?
John Birmingham.
Trent Dalton.
Hey, do you know that book? Have you ever read that book, Last Drinks, McGann book about Queensland in the 1980s? There's an amazing novel.
No.
The late, great Andrew McGann, and he wrote this book called Last Drinks about Joe era Queensland.
Right.
It's basically about
there's one
Valley.
There's one that Clancy just read.
I'm reading the trilogy, the Matthew Condon one about the Crooked Kings and Jackson Joe. It's crazy. It feels like I'm watching The Wire.
Do you know that there's that restaurant in the Valley now that used to be notorious, and they've set it up now as this kind of nostalgia pub?
Oh, nod to it.
And it's got like photos of Russ Hinds on the wall, and it's like walking into the 80s.
Yeah.
You would, if you love those books, you would love it.
Yeah. I have to read Last Drinks.
Last Drinks is amazing.
There's a doco coming out, a Joe era doco, and they're all talking.
Oh.
We had the director in the office the other day. They've got, Cat is obviously going to go off, but they've got Little Proud and they've got all the old coppers and everything like that.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, is that the era you grew up in? Were you were conscious of Sir Joe?
Yeah. It's sort of my first, I knew when I was growing up, I knew about hockey. But for me, it was this sense, in the late 80s, I was kind of 10, 11. And I remember, you drive around the car with mum, the Valiant or the Kingswood, whatever it was then, and you're listening to the news all the time. There's all this chat about the Fitzgerald inquiry and all that sort of stuff. And I remember thinking something's not right here. And I don't know if you guys are in the same boat, but when you grow up in Queensland for a little period there, you felt like the rest of the country was kind of looking down on you a little bit. It's probably why we all got a little bit of a chip on our shoulders, this sense of like, we're not a part of Australia that is respected. And so for me, some of the first things I started noticing in politics was the Premier Wayne Goss when he was running to be the Premier, because I was from a pretty conservative household, never talked about politics, didn't know how my parents vote, but I assumed they voted pretty conservative. And then Wayne Goss came along, and my mum used to see Wayne Goss running around because she worked at the hospital near his place. And there was just this sense of like Wayne Goss was going to really kind of bring this place into the present day.
Yeah.
And so I remember that. That's kind of the first kind of political memory I have, is really Goss winning in 89.
Well, we know the moment when the old way didn't work anymore. We did a doco on it a couple of years ago. The fine cotton affair was the moment when everyone had to go, we can't do this.
Did they paint the horse?
That was the high watermark. That was the high watermark of the Bianca Peterson years. And then from then on, it just started to recede.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, they found a horse and they painted it a different colour.
Couple Kiwi blokes, the brothers who met in couple Kiwi blokes met another bloke in Boggo Road, and it was all tied up with Sydney gangsters, but they wanted to do a ring-in, but they injured the first horse. So they had to get another horse that was the wrong colour, and then they dyed it and shampooed it. And
it was all done with ladies' hair dye, and they were like, what's happened here? And then a week later, they pulled over this, known underworld guy.
Yeah.
Opened his boot, and there's like 500 things of ladies' hair dye in his boot. And they're like, hang on.
Hang on. You know, talking about racing, when I was growing up, my dad used to go to the races on Saturdays, and I got to a certain age and I used to talk him into taking me, and I'd just wander around the public bar, and the old blokes would basically give me the empty tins and stubbies, and I'd collect that for money. That was the first way I ever made money. And sometimes, when I'm talking about something, people say that's a really old man kind of way of describing something.
Yeah.
And I think it's dawned on me in the last little while that one of the reasons for that is probably knocking around the bar at Eagle Farm and Doomben, because I got to know all these old guys.
Learning all these terms of phrase.
Yeah, rhyming slang, some of it no longer repeatable, but and so the racing scene, my dad was in the racing scene a bit. And so I knew a little bit about fine cotton, but also I've been to, when I was a kid, I went to Eagle Farm and Doomben a lot.
Eka races.
Yeah, right. I was about to get a facelift. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
There we go. Well, thank you for talking to us today.
Yeah.
Jim Chalmers, you're a real Logan boy, not a blow-in, not a parachute. He's talking the talk here. And interesting to learn how you first made pocket money, which was recycling cans in the front bar of Doomben Race Club.
Yeah.
I think a lot of Queenslanders will love hearing that.
Tough times, though. That was during the Asian financial kind of meltdown. Big credit crunch there. All the Japanese money
really
in Queensland dried up.
Yeah, hit the Forex market for tins. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, and congratulations on your fourth budget. And, good luck in this lengthy, looks like it's going to be a 6-week campaign for you.
Yeah, we'll see how long it goes for, but it's going to be willing. It's going to be close, and looking forward to getting into it.
We'll see you in late June then.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.